Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished professional from the world of storytelling from Chicago, USA, Mr. G. Riley Mills. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Gary is the co-founder of the Pinnacle Performance Company. He is an Emmy Award or a multi-Emmy Award winning writer and producer. He's the co-author of a book titled Pin Drop Principle and its follow-up book, The Bullseye Principle. And he's got a forthcoming book, which is titled Synergy and Sparks. So, Gary, let's jump straight in. What inspired you to pursue a career as a writer and a producer? And how did your background in theater and storytelling shape your approach to communication?
Great question. Yeah, so we started Pinnacle, my co-founder David Lewis and I, 20 years ago. So we started it then. We were both actors who also worked in business and in the corporate environment. But my love of storytelling goes way back.
Yeah.
And I remember very specifically, I was 14 years old. I grew up in a very small town in a state called Minnesota. 1,200 people in the whole town, just
Wow.
about 1,000 people in the whole town. And there was not much to do. So your imagination and writing stories, reading books, going to movies, that was really an escape from a town that just didn't really have much to do in it. And I remember at 14, I had a mentor who was the drama teacher at the school, and he helped me get into a writing program in Minneapolis, which was the closest big city. And when I was there, I studied in a church basement with one of the most prolific playwrights in the United States. And he taught me a secret formula for storytelling that goes back hundreds of years. And he basically said, if you just get comfortable with this storytelling structure, you're going to be able to tell great stories. And I've been using that storytelling structure for almost 40 some years now.
Wow.
And it's served me really well. And so I talk about it in my new book, Synergy and Sparks. I talk about that formula and how anybody can be a great storyteller. Great storytellers are made, they're not born. You're not born a great storyteller.
Correct.
It's either through your experience or through just practice, trial and error, and learning that you can craft and weave a narrative that's going to pull people in. And I've used it all the way up till now, where, as you mentioned, I won 3 Emmy Awards over the last probably 4 years, and they all use this storytelling formula to help me win those awards. So
Fascinating. Fascinating. What an amazing journey. Was there a defining moment when you realized communication would become your life's work?
I think when we started the company, we had this idea that we had trained as professional actors. And so we had this idea that actors study and learn things that we've used in the corporate environment in our other life to be more successful, to be more influential, and to be more productive. And we realized these things that we learned as an actor, how to prepare, how to manage your nerves or hide your nervousness, how to use your body language, your voice, your gestures, your movement, how to influence emotion to motivate action in the other person you are talking to. These are all things actors study and learn and train in. And we said, hey, these are things that are not just helpful to actors, they're helpful to leaders and executives. So is there a way that we can build a program that's different than a Dale Carnegie or different than a Toastmasters? The approach is different. It reaches into the actor's toolbox, and it uses the actor's mindset to help people become more confident and engaging and influential. And so when we kind of came upon this idea, first off, we thought we were the first ones to think about it.
Yeah.
But actually, it goes way back. In 1956, the sociologist Irving Goffman wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, where he talks about how all of us are social actors, meaning we change the way we talk and the way we move and the way we interact with people based on who we're talking to, where we are, what the setting is, and what we want from the other person. So we talk differently to our boss than we do to our children when we get home at night. And that's all professional actors do, is they're able to modify their delivery in order to get what they want from the other person in any given setting. And so
Fantastic.
it was, so that's really the basis of our company. When David Lewis and I
Mm,
started the company, I write about it in the book. And it's just sharing all these tools and techniques that professional actors understand,
mm,
this actor's mindset,
yeah.
and making it accessible so anybody can use it to be more
Amazing.
successful.
Amazing. You just mentioned you won 3 Emmy Awards. How do these experiences compare with your work in corporate communication?
So my favorite thing that I do is transformation of other people. So if
Hmm.
I can help empower or transform another person and change the way that they work, that the
Hmm.
way they communicate, the way they collaborate, that is my favorite thing. My dad was an educator for almost 50 years before
Hmm.
he retired, and I saw how important learning and development education is in transforming lives. So that is my favorite thing.
Hmm.
But I love the writing too. I love writing and I love crafting narratives and I love collaborating on movie sets, television sets, on theater sets, just to bring a vision to life. So I
Hmm.
really love both of them, but I do love the empowerment and the transformation that comes
Hmm.
with the Pinnacle work, helping people become their most successful self. And
Hmm.
that's what the new book, which I have a copy right here.
Oh,
There
that's
it
nice.
is.
Okay.
Synergy and
Fantastic.
Sparks.
Congratulations.
Um,
Yeah.
that's what it's about. The subtitle is Unlock Excellence Through Communication, Collaboration, and Influence. If you
Fascinating.
can master those three things, you're going to be on your way to success.
Hmm. But you've worked with so many executives and CEOs around the world. What do leaders consistently get wrong about communication?
So I think the first thing is you have to understand the person you are talking to or the
Hmm.
group you are talking to. And you have to, we call it the prism of priority, which
Hmm.
is everyone hears information through their own prism of wants, needs,
Correct.
beliefs, priorities,
Hmm.
what's important to them, values. So if you are presenting information, if you're trying to sell a product or you're trying to convince somebody to do something, you have to first stop, and it's not about you, it's about them. Understand, who are they? What's important to them?
Hmm.
What's going to motivate them to action? And how can you craft a message to
Hmm.
make that happen? If
Hmm.
you're just thinking about yourself or your product, if you
Hmm.
make your pitch all about how great you are, that's not going to get it over the line. You
Hmm.
really have to think about the other person and tailor and customize your message for them.
Hmm.
So I think
That's so.
that's a big
Yeah.
mistake that salespeople make and leaders make,
Hmm. Hmm.
is, and also not meeting people where they are. So if you are running a team of 10 people, they're not robots. They're not all the same.
Correct.
Some may want a lot of feedback. Some may want very little feedback.
Correct.
Or you might have to approach feedback in a different way. I'm not sure how much you work with Gen Z. Do you work with some
I
Gen
do.
Z
I
folks?
do. I do.
So then Gen Z, very different outlook for work and feedback than our generation.
Correct.
They want lots of feedback, lots of mentoring, lots of development.
Hmm.
And if you don't give them feedback, development, and mentoring, Deloitte did a study. Within 1 to 2 years, they're gone. If you're not
Correct.
developing them, they're gone. And the reason people always ask, well, why do you think it is that Gen Z wants constant feedback? They don't want it once a year at their performance review. They want it
Hmm.
consistently and authentically. Why do you think that is? Well, how did they grow up? They grew up with these, and
Correct.
they're constantly getting likes, shares, retweets, hearts, posts.
Hmm.
And so they're used to this constant feedback coming in. So
Yeah.
they want that in the workplace as well. So we all have to adjust to
Correct.
this new type of work.
Correct. But one aspect is communication with Gen Zs. But given the fact that you work across different countries and in your own country where it is so multicultural, how does the cultural context impact communication?
Yeah. So going back to, again, at Pinnacle, we have what's called the Pinnacle method, which is 3 steps for influential communication. So if
Hmm.
I can give those to your listeners,
Please,
this is one of
yes.
the best things I can share with you on this podcast today.
Hmm.
So it's a 3 step process. The first step is analyze your audience, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
Who are they? What's important to them? How can you tailor a message that's going to make them sit up and take notice?
Hmm.
Second is you got to identify, what do you want them to do as a
Hmm.
result of hearing your message? What action do you want them to take? What belief do you want them to now take on? What do you want to have happen? And how do you want
Hmm.
them to feel?
Yeah.
And then the third step is modified delivery. So that's where the professional actor is great because that's what we study: how to use our voice, our
Hmm.
body language, our gestures, our facial expressions, how
Hmm.
to listen so we can capture and summarize information. So I think that's the three-step process that's really important
Hmm.
if you want to deliver a message with impact.
Very interesting. Um, what role does authenticity play in effective communication?
So authenticity is everything, right? And we when we train executives, and we have Fortune 500 clients all over the world. We
Yeah.
train in 65, I think we're up to 65 countries around the world. And if we're training in South Korea, it's going to be slightly different than if we train in New York City, right? Because there are cultural differences. And our big goal is never to turn people into a robot.
Hmm.
So we're all doing exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
which I worry that with Chat GPT now, every email, every LinkedIn post, they're all going to be the same
Correct.
because people are all they're all using, there's no personality anymore. And
Correct.
so authenticity, I think in the future is going to be very important because we love authentic leaders, we love
Hmm.
authentic bosses.
Yeah.
And as an actor, authenticity is our gold, right? My Hamlet, if I get cast, will be different than your Hamlet.
Correct.
Your Hamlet, you're going to bring things that I don't have. And
Hmm.
so that's what we bring into the corporate training and coaching that we do is if you have an accent, we don't want to eliminate your accent.
Hmm.
Your accent is fantastic, but
Correct.
we need to be able to understand. As long as people can understand it, that's fine. But we don't want to shave away anybody's accent so they
Hmm.
sound like somebody else.
Yeah.
We really want you to bring your personal stamp to your communication. Very
Hmm.
important.
Hmm. One more question related to communication that I want to move to your books. How has communication evolved over the last so many years, given the onset of so much technology? And you did speak about ChatGPT a little bit for a few minutes back.
Yeah, my second chapter in the book is all about how technology is changing how we communicate and how we've got to keep that in mind as we build presentations, as we put together pitches, as we do keynotes.
Hmm.
First off, we learned a lot during COVID, right? When
Yeah.
everything got shut down and we moved to online, to virtual coaching or training.
Yeah.
If you do an 8-hour in-person course, you're not just going to do that 8 hours on Zoom.
Hmm.
It doesn't work. It's too
Correct.
long. You will get fatigue. You'll get Zoom fatigue. You'll get burnout. So you have
Hmm.
to rethink how you do it online. It's generally shorter. It's more condensed. You still want to keep it interactive. So if you can use breakouts
Hmm.
to put people in teams, always super helpful.
Hmm.
But definitely people's attention spans, I write about that in the book, are really getting shortened and shortened and shortened. We have a very short
Hmm.
amount of time to
Yeah.
capture someone's attention. And we're always fighting against this.
Correct.
If you're giving a keynote, there's a good chance that every person in that audience has a cell phone in their pocket. And so
Absolutely.
if you are not giving them value, if you're not engaging them, hooking them in, telling them a story that's making them not want to go on Facebook, not want to go check their messages, they're
Hmm.
going to go check their messages because this is more interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why you've got to like hook them in and bring them in and bring technology
Hmm.
sometimes into your training or coaching.
Hmm. Great response. Let's talk about your books now, Gary. What was your motivation behind writing your first two books, The Pin Drop Principle and The Bullseye Principle?
Yeah, the first two came about. We had started the company, Dave and I, and we were about seven years in, and our clients around the world were saying, "Hey, all these stories you tell, all
Hmm.
these tools that you give out in your courses, you
Hmm.
guys should write a book. You should write a book so that people who can't take your class or their company doesn't bring you in can
Hmm.
also learn from these." And
Hmm.
so we did. We wrote Pin Drop Principle, and that came out in 2012 and did great, huge response. And then we did a follow up 5 years later to
Hmm.
sort of build on the lessons and the information in Pin Drop Principle. And then recently, 2 months ago, my new book, Synergy and Sparks, just came out, which after we wrote Bullseye Principle in 2018, I think that one came out, 2017, 2018, I thought we were done. I thought I was done. I'd said everything I needed to say. And then all of a sudden, COVID happened and the world got flipped upside down.
Correct.
Donald Trump happened and the world got flipped upside down. Everything that we all thought we knew about communication and influence not so much anymore.
Hmm.
And so it was time to revisit. I thought, going back to try to figure
Yeah.
out what do we need to do to adjust to this new reality. And that's what the new
Hmm.
book is about.
Wow. Why is storytelling such a powerful tool for social change?
We are all wired for stories.
Yeah.
As human beings, we're just wired to tell stories. We're wired to hear stories. The way they affect our brain, the neuroscience of storytelling is we're used to it from the time we used to sit around campfires as cavemen and talk about the hunt that day and why not to go this way because there's
Yeah.
some creature out there that's going to eat you. Go this way instead. It's stories are just how we survived for years, and we love stories because they
Hmm.
touch us emotionally. So
Correct.
if you want to be an effective leader, if you want to be a boss that can help manage change, storytelling is an essential tool.
Hmm. And how do you decide whether a story is meant to be told as a book, a film, or a stage production?
Very interesting question. So it generally you have to make a call.
Hmm.
Where is it going to sell? Where is it going to get the biggest bang? So if
Hmm.
someone is willing to do the stage version of your story, I would do it because that can then lead to a TV version, or it can
Hmm.
lead to a book, or it can lead to something else.
Hmm.
And having that IP, that intellectual property,
Yeah.
is great because you can do many multi-dimensional things if you have a great
Hmm.
story.
Hmm. Can you share a story, Gary, of a leader, without any names, of course, who transformed through communication coaching?
Who transform through communication coaching?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one of my favorite stories.
Hmm.
One of my favorite stories of a leader transforming their messaging and their communication
Right.
through communication. Steve Jobs. A lot of people don't know this about Steve Jobs. They know he was a great presenter, right? We all love the launches when he pulls out the iPad and
Hmm.
says you can, or the iPod, you have all these 1,000 songs right in your pocket. So
Hmm.
what a lot of people don't know about Steve Jobs is he was not for the iPhone. He was against developing an iPhone at Apple.
Okay.
And he was against it because he thought phones for at the time were big and ugly and
Correct.
clunky and inelegant. They
Yeah.
weren't beautiful like Apple products. And he didn't want to have a big, clunky, ugly block phone in the Apple portfolio, right?
Hmm.
His team, however, and his designers knew that the competition, they're going to come up with a phone. And if we don't get on it before them, they're going to win the day. And
Hmm.
so what his team did is they knew their audience and Steve Jobs, they knew he was competitive. So what they did is they said, hey, look, we hear you. Microsoft, your biggest rival, is going to come up with a phone. Do you
Hmm.
want them to beat you to the punch and to own that market that Apple should own?
Hmm.
And because they said that, it got Steve Jobs' fighting spirit up, and
Wow.
he was more open to it. And eventually he came around and became a big champion of the
Yeah.
iPhone,
Yeah.
which you could argue is Apple's most successful
Correct.
product.
Correct.
And so it was him being receptive to other people's ideas,
Hmm.
one, but also that team around him understanding who he was and what motivated him and crafting a message to change his mind. So
Hmm.
it's communication all around
Yeah.
that gave us these amazing iPhones that we all have in our pockets.
Absolutely. Gary, I have time for two more questions for
That
you.
story is in Synergy and Sparks, by the way.
Okay.
I write about that story in the book.
Fantastic.
Sure.
I'm going to get a copy of that book, and I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Gary's book, Synergy and Sparks. So I have time for two more questions for you. You co-founded the Bookwala organization.
Great.
How did that come about? And tell me about this organization.
Yeah, so this is really close and dear to my heart. I've been to India probably, I was trying to count at least 70 times
Wow.
probably over the last 20 years.
Hmm.
And about 15 years ago, a friend of mine named Sina Jacob, she had an idea. She grew up in down by Kerala, and storybooks got her through some difficult times as a
Hmm.
child. And
Hmm.
she wanted to give back to the children of India. So she came up with an idea where she wanted to build libraries in orphanages
Yeah.
in India for orphanages that didn't have libraries. And she wanted to collect books in the United States, storybooks from kids in the United States who had maybe outgrown them or were finished with them. And then she wanted to take those books and put them in libraries in India. So it's a big task. It's a big thing to try to do. But she and I and our friend Ranjit, who is in Mumbai, we started the company 15 years ago. And so far we've done, I think, over 20 libraries in
Wow.
orphanages across India.
Wow.
And so one of the most rewarding things that I do when I would come to India was I'd go spend the day in those orphanages with those kids, reading stories, teaching them storytelling, hearing their own stories, and seeing just how they lit up when they were read a book or when they were read a fairy tale. So yeah, really great organization. And we've helped a lot of really great kids in India find their voice, which is really inspiring.
Amazing. And my last question to you, Gary, what advice would you give to young leaders and creatives who want to use communication to make a difference?
So communication, I would say, is at the heart of any successful person. If you look at any person, they have to be able to communicate a vision. They have to communicate with people around them who they're collaborating with. They have to build connections with team members, with bosses, with clients, and that's all communication. So if you can focus and sharpen your communication, if that's the one thing you focus on, that's going to those human skills. That's what is going to set you apart, especially Gen Z, because they're so used to communicating like this. If you can communicate like this in person across generations, so you can communicate and collaborate with people who you have nothing in common with or you don't even like, that's a really, really special skill for the future. It's that adaptability that's going to be so important for young people.
Fascinating. And on that note, Gary, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been with you. Clearly, your training in theater has made you an incredible communicator, and you've been able to share so many of your thoughts in such a lucid manner, writing your books, talking about communication, talking about mistakes people make, and of course, telling us about your Bookwala organization. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.